Hey guys, Hades here. This will be our third and final lesson on figurative language. This will be part C, I guess we'll call it. All right, the last two lessons we talked about a lot of stuff. We're going to finish it up today. I don't know. Similes, metaphors, idioms, slang, personification, allusion. We talked about a lot of stuff. You can go check those out. We're going to continue on from here. What is a moron? What is an oxymoron? What is a paradox? Since I don't actually answer this first one in here, when you call someone a moron, you're saying they are stupid or unintelligent. But often when I ask what an oxymoron is, students get confused and think of the definition of a moron. An oxymoron is the use of opposite or contradictory words used together for emphasis, like seriously joking, jumbo shrimp, accurate estimate, awfully good, right? Using opposite or contradictory words together in a phrase. Usually it's just two words, but it can be more. Like, look, the sound of silence, falsely true. Sound of silence. How could there be a sound of silence when silence means there's no sound? And look at that bottom one, stop or keep moving, right? Probably what we're missing in the picture is there's a line between them. But that is funny, those signs are so close together. All right, seriously joking, right? How can you be joking if you're serious, right? Jumbo shrimp. Now, shrimp in English, besides the animal, it also means something very small, right? A slang word of shrimp means something very small. So, of course, that's an oxymoron. Accurate estimate. An estimate is a guess. I mean, it's an educated guess, but still it's a guess. So how can something be accurate and an estimate? And awfully good. How can something be awful and good at the same time, right? Often, though, we use the word awfully for very. So really what I mean there is very good. I like the band Megadeth, so I'm going to give you an oxymoron. From Megadeth. Military intelligence, two words combined that can't make sense. Often people say this was an oxymoron before Megadeth recorded this, but often military is warlike and aggressive, so how can it be intelligent is basically what people are trying to say here. A paradox is a statement or proposition which is self-contradictory, unreasonable, or illogical. Okay, look at these pictures here. At the bottom right, there's a visual paradox. The stairs keep going up, right? Keep going up, up, and keep going around and around. Well, that would be physically impossible, right? And I like that top one. The blue button is true, the red button is false. Okay, so let's look at this closely. Look at the red button. The blue button is true. Okay, all right. The blue button has to be true, right? Because the red button said it. Then the red button says, or then the blue button says the red button is false. That's a paradox. This can't be, right? If we know the red button is false, then the blue button can't be true, right? And another one here. This is more literary. Impossible is not a word in my vocabulary. When people say their vocabulary, they mean their lexicon, right? Means all the words they know. Impossible is not a word in my vocabulary. Yes, it is, because you just said it. It has to be in your vocabulary or you wouldn't be able to say it, right? You wouldn't know it. So what they mean is, not, I don't think anything's impossible. But the way they said it is a paradox, right? Impossible is not a word in my vocabulary. It has to be in your vocabulary for you to say it. What is poetry? Well, I think you know what poetry is. It's different than prose, right? Poetry uses much more figurative language than prose. Prose is just any other writing that isn't poetry. So we're going to look at some stuff. These two things they could be in both poetry and prose, but usually in poetry. What is alliteration? What is assonance? Alliteration is the use of the repetition of consonant sounds at the beginning of words for a series of multiple words, right? Sarah's seven sisters slept soundly, repeating that sound, right? That's all. Often it's used in poetry. It can be sometimes used in prose. And there's a bunch on the right. We're not going to read them all. Michael mixes many muffins, right? Alliteration, repeating the same consonant sound. Probably one of my top 10 favorite writers would be Edgar Allan Poe. While I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. That's from The Raven, probably his most popular poem. Nodded, nearly napping. That's alliteration, right? Repeating the same consonant sound. Assonance is the repetition of certain vowel sounds to create internal rhyming in a series of words, right? Why, try, while, flying, high, I, right? Repeating the same vowel sound. Now, the words don't have to rhyme. They have an internal rhyme, just means the same vowel sound, right? That cat sat back. The first three words actually rhyme. The back, the fourth word, is just an internal rhyme, right? Half rhyme, partial rhyme, right? That cat sat back. Repetition of vowel sounds. What is metonymy or a metonym? What is a pun? What is a cliche? What is a euphemism? Metonymy or a metonym is a figure of speech in which something is not called by its own name, but by something associated with it. So, example, Washington, D.C., U.S. government, right? Sometimes when people say in Washington, they said this. They don't mean in the city of Washington, D.C. They mean the U.S. government, because that's where the U.S. government is headquartered. Same thing for almost any country, right? In Moscow, they said this. They don't mean the city of Moscow. They mean the Russian government. In Beijing, they said this. They don't mean the city of Beijing. They mean the Chinese government, right? So metonymy is using something associated with something else to describe it. Perfect example here on the right, the cartoon. Attention, all hands on deck. They say that on ships. They mean people, right? But they're talking about their hands because they need their hands to work, right? So often on a ship, they'll refer to a person as hand. That's part of that person. It's associated with that person because that person uses his or her hands to work. Yeah, so that's metonymy. Puns are forms of wordplay where the writer deliberately invokes multiple meanings for a humorous or rhetorical effect. Sleeping pill. Get it? The pill you take to sleep, but also the pill itself is sleeping, right? So you actually needed a picture for that. Otherwise, people wouldn't understand it. But a pun is always going to have at least two meanings, and those are deliberate, right? So you'll often hear someone say, no pun intended, where they accidentally said a pun, right? Where it could have two or more meanings. Usually it's just two, but it can have multiple meanings. It can have 3 or 4 meanings sometimes. Eating a clock is time-consuming. What's the meaning of that? Okay, the person is literally consuming time because they're eating a clock, right? That's one definition. Another definition is time-consuming means something that takes a long time or is a waste of time. It's time-consuming. So those are the two meanings there. I did not put a lot of puns in here because I believe on one of my random videos, I have a lot of puns. So you could go check that out. I don't remember which one off the top of my head. But in one of the random ones, I talk about puns, and we talk about them for a while. Shakespeare also liked to use a lot of puns. I mention that because I'm simultaneously doing a series on Shakespeare right now. A cliche is an expression, idea, or element of artistic work that has become overused to the point of becoming annoying or losing the original meaning or effect. Right? So a cliche is something used too often. So these are things typically you want to avoid in writing. You want to avoid it in your literature. Now, if you read old stuff, you might see a cliche there, but at the time it might not have been a cliche. It's just since then it's been used over and over and over, right? So look at the cartoon. Oh, great, I'm stranded in a cartoon cliche, right? Because most cartoons where people are on a desert island, there's a palm tree, the person is wearing ragged clothing, and often they're the only one there. A euphemism is the substitution of an inoffensive or socially acceptable phrase in place of something that might be considered obscene, vulgar, or otherwise offensive. Right? So often we'll use euphemisms because it's lighter than what we really wanted to say. Right? So if you look at the cartoon, and this is where we do our business, sometimes people refer to using the toilet as doing their business. Here we have some more euphemisms. Again, euphemisms are also idioms. They're a type of idiom, right? The company is downsizing. That's a nice way to say that they're firing a lot of people, right? That's nicer. It sounds nicer than, where a lot of people are losing their jobs. I need to powder my nose. This isn't so common anymore. You still might hear people saying it, but I think they're trying to be ironic these days. That means use the bathroom. Use the bathroom, or use the bathroom is also a euphemism, right? Are you taking a bath, or use the restroom? Are you having a rest? No, what you're doing is you're urinating or defecating, right? You're going to pee or poop, but it's polite to say I'm going to the bathroom instead of I'm going to go take a piss, right? So that's a euphemism. My son has special needs. Special needs is a polite way to say there's something wrong with him. Maybe a mental deficiency or a physical deficiency. So often we refer to people who have certain, perhaps handicaps, we refer to them as special these days. It sounds nicer than handicapped. Although, when I was younger, handicapped was nicer than saying, like mentally handicapped was nicer than saying retarded. But now, and retarded was normal a number of decades ago, but now it's not. So we developed these euphemisms to be nice, less rude. You are becoming a little thin on top. That basically means the person is losing his hair, right? She is relaxed about her appearance. That basically means she doesn't look good. Mostly maybe because of the way she dresses or her personal hygiene, right? So she's ugly or she doesn't look good. He is becoming unhinged. That just means he's going crazy, right? He's becoming crazy. We have a lot of euphemisms for crazy. One can short of a six-pack. There's just many. I could probably maybe do a whole, 5 or 10 minute video on euphemisms for going crazy. Maybe I will. She is in a family way. Now this one, when I have students guess, again with sections like this, we have long conversations and students guess what some of these things mean. They often think that she's getting married, but that's not what it means. In a family way, it means pregnant, right? Now today we'll just say pregnant. We won't say she's in a family way. But in the past, they didn't use the word pregnant because how do you get pregnant? Sex, right? So they wouldn't say pregnant because it might make them think of sex. So they would say she's in a family way. It means she's pregnant. She's going to have a baby. His father passed away. This is a very common one. Most people know it. Passed away is a nice way to say that someone died. We'll have to charge you a convenience fee. That's a euphemism companies use. It's not convenient. They're charging you money. They just call it a convenience fee because it sounds nice. But they're really charging you extra money. And I'm between jobs right now. What does that mean? That's a nice way to say you don't have a job, right? It can often be, sorry, there's a lot of noise outside. Yeah, people doing yard work and stuff around. Okay, I'm between jobs right now. Basically, that means I had a job in the past. I will have a job in the future. Right now, I'm between them, right? A nice way to say I'm unemployed or I don't have a job. All right, what did you learn today? What types of figurative language do you use? Do you think you will use more figurative language now? All right, I'm sorry this this is a little blurry here. If you want to take this little quiz, knock yourself out, but you'll probably have to pause it. I'm not going to be on here too much longer. Okay, thank you so much, you guys. I really appreciate it. This will end our figurative language one. I believe this is one of my better PowerPoints. I don't know why it took me so long to get around to doing it. I even do this at my university classes. I make sure everyone's had this lesson. Anyhow, thanks so much. I appreciate it. I appreciate your views, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.